Hello, welcome to A Roll of the Dice. My name's Rob Stewart from Rob Stewart Photography. We're going to continue on using our sandbox and force perspective as we have before. And this time we're going to use a popular toy set and going to make a monster truck. Now what we're going to try to do with this is to use this particular photograph and make a sense of motion as we can with that one in the same way. So we're going to try and reproduce this using several things. First of all, we're going to build it, which is always great fun. Then we're going to photograph it by adding it onto a base. So we're going to put a bit of a base onto here. Then we're going to show how we can give this a sense of motion. And then this thing can get laid into our sandbox, covered over a little bit, and then we can start taking some different photographs in different styles and ways. So first thing we're going to do, which is always an enjoyable thing, is we're going to make up our Lego truck. So we've got some nice big truck tires in this, and we've got the other various bits and pieces, and always, same as many of us always forget to do, read the instructions. So we're going to make this up, and then we can start looking at how we can present this so that it can look as though it's doing the same as these things. So that one, it's showing different perspective. We can use all of these and show how to use them. So here we are, one monster truck all done. All looks pretty cool. Now you can have it with the roof on, the roof off, with the driver. You also get a mop up here as well on it. But we're going to put this on a sandbox in various ways. We will have it with the roof off so you can see in it. It's a lot easier to see it. But we're also going to put it on a base so that we can start looking at giving it a sense of movement. How do we do that? Well, we do that by putting a line of sand along there to make it look like it's moving up. How do we do that then? Well, we started off, first of all, with a piece of board. So we line up, we want enough room to be able to do the diorama, and probably to about there we're going to cover that with glue, cover it with sand, and we're also going to put a spray of sand behind it to give that illusion of it about to take off. Now we're not going to worry about the edges of this because this will just slide into the sandbox. We're going to use the same sand, so as we slide it in, it's not going to notice. You just see that. Well, and how are we going to do it? Well, let's have a look. We've got our piece of board and we want to know roughly how much we're going to use. So we're going to cut it probably around that kind of size. And we want to know roughly where the sand is going to go. If you can imagine the sand coming out, it's going to spread like that. So we want something to come and look a little bit like that. So how then do we give that illusion? Well, one of the ways we can do it is by using these, a little snack pack. And all we're going to do is we're going to cut out these flat pieces, shape them so they come along with where we think it's going to be, and probably actually just put a little bit on there, just there, so we've got a rough guide as to what we're going to use. And once we've done that, we're going to cover that with white glue, put some sand on it, and then fix that to this diorama. So let's start looking at doing it, getting a piece cut, getting some of this cut so we know where we're going to be able to put it. So we've cut these pieces out just roughly, and we're going to put a rough kind of look on it so they look uniform. So they're going to be pretty roughly. We want one there and we want one there, and that will allow us to cut those out so we have two pieces that will fairly roughly cover where we want to go. And you notice that we're not looking for fantastically accurate things. We just want something to sit there so that when we put this behind it, we can actually raise this up a little bit and give the illusion of the sand that's on there. So we've glued these in, and eventually once this is all dried and we've pinned this down a little bit, all of this will be covered with white glue and sand, and it just gives the illusion there of a bit of movement of the sand coming up behind it. We can move it around, but it gives that kind of feeling of what's happening. So we'll get these two pieces glued in and off we go. So we spread along a good bit of white glue, cover as much of the corner as you can, and once we've done that, then it's simply a case of taking some of the sand with a little bit of the grit in there as well, just to give it a bit of context, and leave it to dry. So we've given it a good covering of white glue, we've covered it with sand and other bits, and we've also used some dark acrylic paint, well watered down, to give a little bit of colour down to there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of this, dry brush it and bring up all of these textures down there, so it gives the illusion when we put this on there and when we put it down the side of the truck, it's just seeming to move along. So we'll have a look at that. So let's do a bit of dry brushing. Use one of the large dry brushing and then rub out a good bit of that, then simply drag that along, and you see as you do that gradually we'll just highlight, and if you move it in one direction it will then allow the feeling of movement on those bits of sand. We can run it along here as well. We'll see how it looks. Particularly here, we'll give illusion of there being a small track in here as well that can be followed, so we can then understand that this is going to be going somewhere. And we'll work this on, build up some of that, and then we'll see how we look. So as we move along and gradually just take a little bit there, you'll notice that you have this little bit of flap on there. Now, the reason we've done that is to give that illusion. And when you come to editing, on this bit there, we will blur that out. So that whole part of it will look as though it's running through. It looks a little bit messy at the moment, but once a bit of editing, you'll see that come out. And you'll see how we can make that illusion. So there we go. So we'll put this onto the sandbox and we'll see how it looks. So here we have, against the background here, we've got a black cloth in the corner and a white background. And one of the ways that we can make this work is by actually putting the tire marks or tread marks in there. So what we can do, because this is play sand and it will tend, because it's slightly damp, to hold its shape, we can just put a couple of tracks on. That tells us that this has been running through, so we can then stick it on the tracks, and then we know that it's been running through. So here out in the arid desert is our little man, and he's all ready to race. To change it, to make it look like it's driving along, first thing we're going to have to do is to put that base in we made, but also then we'll put some blurs into the tyres in Photoshop later on. You'll see that as we run through the stills, you'll see how we can make those illusions.